wondering whether the applicant has forgotten that there were some alternatives considered in the, I'm looking at it now, page 11 of the environmental statement non-technical summary. It is there in black and white, so I think you may have forgotten that there was consideration given to alternatives, and it was turned down because of access difficulties.
Chair, I would say again, EI regulations are quite prescriptive. They state there is no requirement for the applicant to produce alternatives.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Scott.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to ask Mr. Shaw about the roads infrastructure from the A28 up through Maplehurst Road, which is proposed to be closed, and also Junction Road onto the bridge, which is proposed to be closed, but it doesn't give any timeline for that to be happening. Some of that is of some concern, and I need to have a better understanding of what, because it does constitute part of the application, I understand what the timelines are for that.
Chair, firstly, Junction Road is part of the application and will be closed as part of it because clearly it's a substandard junction. As all the residents know, in Maplehurst, then it is a rat run at the present time and it's not for purpose for what it's used. In terms of a timeline for it, then anticipate that by conditioning and by promotion of the Roads Authority, then the modifications to what happens in Maplehurst will be achieved prior to the opening of Queensway Gateway Road.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Roberts.
Thanks, Chair. Just to follow on Mr. Shaw, I'll just try and get through my head. The junction road is closed. Maplehurst Road is more traffic coming is already. If you're coming from the north and you want to go to Orr Village, say for instance, and you're coming down the Central Road North, that sort of way, you have to go right the way round in a circle, effectively you get on the ridge at Queensway, to go along to Orr Village, because either that or use Maplehurst Road. So I'm just wondering, what would happen, what would be the way round in that area?
The traffic measures won't allow you to go through Maplehurst Road,
No.
so the anticipation is that you would be round the loop and back up onto the ridge at the Queensway Ridge Junction, West Ridge Junction.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions, thank you, Mr. Shaw. If you'd like to go back to the seat, and Councillor Gould, if you'd like to come and take a seat. Thank you. I think you know the procedure, so if you'd like to start whenever you're ready. You have 5 minutes and no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't intend on keeping me for the full 5 minutes. If I can start by saying, on a lot of issues in the past, I agree with many of the people who are sat behind me. I'm afraid on this one, I don't agree at all. And the reason for that is that I have represented now Ashdown for 13 years. And I know that this area and this particular junction of the ridge has been so troublesome. For me personally, page 14 of the report, paragraph 612, and the third bullet point is the key point, the relieving of some of the congestion along that area. We have seen over recent weeks in the Ashdown area the problems that are caused in just a few short days, over just a few short days when we have roadworks. The link road is due to open tomorrow, and then we will have hundreds, if not thousands of cars a day pouring onto the ridge. Without the Queensway Gateway, this will become the largest car park in the southeast. I'm no expert on air quality, however I do not think that a car idling on the ridge, stuck in traffic, will in any way improve the air quality for residents in that area. I know that Rambler coaches have raised concerns actually about the Queensway Gateway. I would just like to address that, and they are very worried about how they're going to get their coaches out onto the new Queensway Gateway, and if that can be answered or looked at in terms of a condition, I think we'd all feel much better about that. Residents on the ridge and in Maplehurst Road especially, and I remember Phil Scott was actually dealing with Maplehurst Road when he was still the county councillor for Ashdown and Hollington some 15 years ago. They have suffered with traffic for a very, very long time. and the actual mitigation that will go on at the bottom of Maplehurst Road will bring relief to residents who have put up with traffic problems for many years. Right across the ridge, we have public buildings. We have a hospital, we have 2 schools that I can think of, and we have a fire station as well. Rightly or wrongly, the council is planning to build a further 800 houses. I cannot see how any of this remains viable if we don't have this road to relieve the traffic. The road is needed by the residents who don't want their air quality ruined by idling cars. To not build this road is to consign residents on the bridge to terrible air quality. To not build this road is to consign children to bad air, which will bring to asthma and other childhood diseases. For the residents of Ashdown and Conquest, I urge you to vote for this tonight. And as I say, whilst I understand the concerns of those against this, I think on this item they are mistaken, and I do urge each member of the planning board to vote in favour of this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Right, now, Mr. Chelly, do you have anything further to add? We'll respond.
With regards to the new level of coaches, I understand that this was put to the applicants and that they were shown how that it would work with the new road, and I understand that they were satisfied with that. Is there anything else I should have picked up on? I didn't make me note anything else.
No? Okay. Mr. Batch, do you want to add anything? No? Okay, then do members have any questions for the officers? I'll just remind you, we've got Ms Megler from the Highway Authority, Mr Parry from Acon Environmental Consultants, and you know Murray Davidson, our own environmental expert. So, questions to officers. Councillor Wingcross.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to maybe ask our officers about traffic coming from London to East Hastings. Whether there has been any measure, maybe a percentage of traffic that comes down the A21, heading on to the B2093, and how this extra long diversion, whereas before they could go up Junction Road or up Maplehurst Road, impacts on air pollution.
Okay. Can you answer that? Or is that one for you or for you?
I'm not sure if it's an air quality question or if it's a transport question.
Transport.
It's affecting air quality.
Air quality. Is it air quality? Mr. Batch.
Sorry, Chair. My understanding of that councillor report is you asked maybe 2 questions actually within that question.
Sorry.
One was about transport and traffic from London, and the other was about how that may impact on air quality. So, do you maybe want to rephrase and ask 2 questions? That's clear.
Okay. Traffic coming from the A21 now has to go around this extended route to get to East Hastings. Is that correct?
You mean once the Gateway Road is open?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's true. Okay. Has there been any modelling as to the increased emissions as a result of this?
Right, so because these vehicles, will now have to travel further to get where they're going. Has anybody got an answer for us, Mr. Chair?
Well, the modelling that's been done has taken into account the traffic movements throughout the area, so my assumption is yes, that it would have included, the modelling that's been done included all of those new traffic movements and the redistribution of traffic around the network as a result of the gateway.
Okay, Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder if this is for Mr. Davison actually. In terms of inadequate ecological submissions, can you just expand on that, please? Because that's not you saying that, I guess, but it's others saying that. That would be helpful to have a better understanding of what we've actually got in terms of wildlife on the land, individual species, if you like. and what impact it would be on those particular species.
Sure, there's lots of questions. As far as ecological surveys is concerned, the ecological surveys that have been undertaken fully comply with our local planning policies and national planning policy guidance. So I'm satisfied that the ecological surveys that have been conducted to inform this have been conducted adequately.
Yeah, Chair, what I'm asking is what wildlife do we have there? What's the true value of the ancient woodland in terms of the wildlife and ecology, and how we're able to list all of those species that are there, and have a better understanding of what the impact would be of any development on the road.
Yeah, the species that were found are indicated in the consultant's submissions, so they have given us a list of species that they've found throughout their ecological surveys, and they've identified the ones of particular significance that are protected species that require particular mitigation. So again, they have provided us with a full suite of information.
Can you put the microphone here? We can't hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Can you answer the question?
Right, Councillor Scott, do you have any?
And while Mr. Davison's there, it would be helpful to have a better understanding of what translocation is required and how successful translocation has been elsewhere.
And there will be translocation of common lizards and slow worms, both of which are protected species. There, as I understand it, there's insufficient land on the site itself to take the lizards. They will be translocated off-site to a site in Bunwash Common.
Thank you. Councillor
Chair, sorry, can I, on the last part of that was what success rate is there in terms of translocation? Thanks.
Translocation is an option of last resort, Chair, and whilst developers have undertaken translocations from developments in the borough, sometimes we have got no indication as to how successful they have been because they've been undertaken by private developers.
Okay, Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. This is something I'd just like some clarification on, which was brought up by Miss Needham, regarding the emissions and the fact that these have been calculated. Have we taken into account in the calculations the recent controversy over, for example, the VW, and the fact that clearly the emissions have been calculated incorrectly? Has this been taken into account in the figures we are currently being given?
My understanding is that the calculations would not have taken account of the VW scandal, and DEFRA in particular have already said that they do not believe that it will impact upon the emission levels across the country. That's the evidence, that's the best evidence I have at this moment. Nobody is in a position to specifically carry out new calculations. The calculations are based on what we call the National Atmospheric Emissions Inventory, which is updated almost every year to take account of what the vehicle fleet is, what their overall emissions are, the types of roads they're travelling on, etc. So it takes account of all those aspects, but what it is not in a position to do is take account of the VW aspect. And of course, VW was about cheating the emissions test, which is actually different to what the levels will be at the end of the pipe when they're moving along roads. So we're not in a position to say, they will be X amount higher, but on the basis of how much the vehicle fleet is made up of VWs, I believe the figure is somewhere in the region of 4%, I wouldn't envisage that the predictions would go up to such an extent that the air quality limit values would be exceeded at sensitive human receptor locations. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Please, can I remind you, and I don't intend to keep doing it, members of the public are here to listen to the debate, not to interrupt or try and shout down people with whom they disagree. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst I have an air quality question, I've been doing quite a lot of research of various things around this, not just the documents being given, but in a wider scale. And something interesting that I came across that I'd like answered tonight is that as a town, we actually have relatively low car ownership. So the figures that they are for traffic usage along the ridge and along this application is such. Does it take into account a general increase in car ownership in the town, as well as other applications that may or may not be approved for large development sites that are in the plan over the next 10 years, say?
In a way, that's less of a question about air quality. It's more about the inputs into the highways model that's being utilised. But ordinarily, my understanding is it would have taken account of cumulative impacts and trends across the area. One of the things that it does take account of is future years. Now, the future year that has been chosen for this development is 2016. Well, clearly, with the best will in the world, the road won't be open in 2016, which means that emissions should be still lower in future years because you've got cleaner technology coming forward, newer vehicles, putting aside VW, if we may. But so the predication that's been carried out by the applicants is on the basis of 2016, taking account of everything that they know about traffic and movements around the area. So it's my belief that because emissions will get better, because there's different classes of vehicles coming forward, and that includes the heavy goods vehicles as well, and what's called the Euro 5 and the Euro 6 cars, emissions will get better. So worst case is the day of opening of the road, assuming it attracts all of the vehicles that they envisage. After that, with emissions generally coming down, so will the overall pollutant levels at individual receptor locations.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chairman. We're told, and I agree, that the OTRs will not generate any new traffic. The traffic that's going to be there has already been produced by other approvals that we've given in the past. That means that there are the same number of vehicles in a given area. So they're either on the ridge as they are now, or they would be on the new road if it were approved. Can the relevant officer tell me, would the pollution be worse if the traffic was held up as if it was a car park static on the ridge, or whether it was moving on the link road, on the gateway as we're proposing?
We're trying to fight over who actually answers. From an air quality point of view, the way emissions work is at low speed you get high emissions. At very high speed you get high emissions. Somewhere in between, round about 30 miles an hour, is where you get your minimum emissions, particularly of nitrogen dioxide. So wherever you can engineer a highway solution which reduces congestion and reduces overall pollution because of that, and allows the traffic to freely flow, then that, just in itself, should improve overall pollutant concentrations.
Thank you. Councillor Beaver.
Thank you. Just to clarify on one point, you said that at 30 miles an hour a car moving produces the lowest amount of emissions, and you said that at a very high speed and at a very low speed it produces higher emissions. Does the very low speed include an idling car standing still?
The answer to that is yes, it does. Effectively, the emission curve you can think of as almost a U shape. So, as I say, in that middle range, around about 30 miles an hour is where you get the least emissions. Clearly, if you had speed limits that were a lot higher, you know, if you encouraged everybody to do 70 miles an hour on the roads around Hastings, then emissions would go up. But that's never likely to happen. So, yes, when traffic is at very low speeds or just idling, that's when the emissions are the worst.
Thank you. Councillor Rogers wants to come back.
Thanks, Chair. It's just picking up on that, this low emissions at 30 miles an hour. Concern for me is there are 3 roundabouts on that big road. So the option of getting up to 30 miles an hour is going to be very limited on that, what is a relatively short expanse of road. So surely the emissions are going to be higher. Having said that, I fully accept that actually currently, as the area is, we're probably not going to do much more than 30 miles an hour anyway, but is this going to make that much of a difference?
My understanding is that it should, because it will reduce queuing traffic. Effectively, you've got 2 substandard junctions, and I've driven through them both, so I know I've queued on both of them to try and get out, well, to turn right on one off at the ridge, and then to come out of Junction Road to come down into Hastings. So I know that even what I would call out of peak hours, 2:30 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, traffic is queuing there. Roundabouts, appropriately designed roundabouts, should improve the flow through those junctions.
Thank you. Councillor Wincott, another question.
Yeah, thanks. The statistics on which we base the emissions and the U shape, isn't it fair to say that in Hastings, because we have we're poorer, that the cars are less green, so that U is actually higher up. So we have more emissions in Hastings because you need to spend quite a lot of money to have a greener car.
There may be a case. I don't know, because I'm unaware of the car ownership trends within Hastings, so there may be an issue about the extent to which people continue to use technology which is less new, and therefore the emissions may be higher. Bearing in mind that this is all about 2016 as well, so it's not predicting for lots of electric vehicles in the future, etc., or people using hydrogen cells or biofuels or any of these aspects. It's about what's there now. As far as predicting pollutant concentrations is concerned, it is general practice, as approved by DEFRA, to use the National Atmospheric Emissions Inventory for the area. And so it can't take account of the particular demographics of car ownership in this area, but that is the approved methodology.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. If there are no further questions, we'll move into the discussion. Who would like to start us off? Councillor Wincott?
Okay, I've got some concerns, clearly, and that's why I keep asking very similar questions about air pollutants. I'm worried that people coming back from London, because we don't know the percentage number of cars that come off to go to East Hastings. I obviously represent Bor as a councillor, and I do worry that this extra journey, this extra length of journey and going roundabouts and back on yourself again, back onto the ridge, is going to be a problem. I think there might be a mistake in the report, because 6.4.9 says, quote, closing Maplehurst Road is intended to stop rat running to reach the A21 from B2093, but it will funnel more traffic onto the ridge in Junction Road. Well, if Junction Road is going to be closed, I'm not really sure whether 6.4.9 is correct or not, because if they're both gone and we can't use either of those roads anymore, then it's not correct. Anyway, so I've got a slight problem with that. As you've heard, I've got some issue with the fact that we are a town that has poverty issues. There is no scrappage scheme anymore, at least not a government-backed one. I'd like to see that we move over to greener technology. I'd like to see more bus use, more public transport. But in a town like ours, it's difficult to see that happening. At the county council, Councillor Scott and I are county councillors. We know that budgets are being squeezed every which way. So investment in public transport is pretty much not going to happen. Not to the extent that we would like. So if we can't encourage more public transport use, we can't increase the number of subsidised bus routes, we're going to have more cars on the road. So I feel a lot of sympathy with what a lot of the objectives are saying. However, there is no evidence, and this is a problem, there is no evidence as to what the pollution levels would be like without this. This is what's on the table, this is what's presented to us. We need to make a judgment on whether this in itself is going to be acceptable. There needs to be credible, I say this at a lot of meetings, so I apologise if you're a regular attendee, but we need to have credible evidence, more than 50-50, that it will cause harm to the town. I don't think that's been presented to us at this moment. I'd like to hear what everyone else has to say. I'm reserving judgment at the moment.
Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, and the issue of clean air and air pollution can't be divorced from our general overall prosperity in the town, the population which is set to grow. We all know from our recently approved development management plan that housing is due to take place in considerable numbers along the ridge. Only recently we approved a development of 208 houses up on Holmhurst and Mary. There are more development proposals coming along in the pipeline. Now, if we really want to reduce air pollution, we have got to put a stop to that development. But we're all told that more houses are vitally needed. They're necessary. There are people living in poor conditions. We must provide the houses for them. I have at times reservations about the plan that we have agreed in terms of the numbers that we have accepted. But they are the agreed figures, and as part of the overall plan for Hastings over the next 15, 17 years, whatever it is, up to 2028, we have a lot more houses coming. If we're going to have a lot more houses coming, those people have got to get around the town, either in or out of the town or within the town. And there are a limited number of ways of doing it. We're approving developments where there are very limited availability for public transport. You've got the Beachy Head estate. There are no buses down there. If you do that, you've got to use a car. Same with what I call the Americans. You've got to use a car. Now, if we're going to be realistic about air pollution, we've got to put in means of getting people around in a clean manner. At the moment, we're not doing it, and I can't really see any sign of doing it. And that means we've got to use the main arteries that we have in existence, the main one being the Ridge, Sellerscombe Road and Battle Road. And if we allow those roads to be completely clogged by sheer volume of traffic, not just internally generated, but coming from London and coming from Bexhill and coming from the east, we will all stand still, our prosperity will die, our pollution will get worse and worse, and we will all be looking very silly at the end of it. We'll be saying, oh, we've got clean air, but life has come to a standstill. I'm afraid we can't really look as representatives here looking ahead. I don't think that's a situation that we can tolerate. So, Chairman, I shall be supporting the proposal as it's laid out this evening. Thank you.
Are you proposing?
I'd be prepared to propose it, Chairman.
With, as was suggested, the deletion of conditions 5 and 6 and the renumbering. Yep. Okay. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Beaver. Do you want to speak now? Or?
I'll reserve the right, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Councillor Dowling. Next.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have, it's an open debate, so I will put my point forward. We have in this town now so much traffic coming in and out of this town.
I can't hear you.
We have no traffic coming in and out of this town. And one of the worst places is coming back up from London, up Edmonds Hill, up onto the ridge. Up onto Sussex Road North. That is created by the right-hand turn into Junction Road. When you've got traffic going out, they don't give way, and you're stuck there for hours, and we end up with statutory vehicles right the way down Edmonds Hill, right the way back down to Mill Lane, which is doing irreparable damage to the environment throughout our countryside. So we have got to do something, and I can not see any other way forward except the gateway.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I've really enjoyed the debate on this tonight, and I think a lot of good questions have been asked and answered. I've spent a lot of time looking over all the information that's been presented to me, and I do have some serious reservations about the long-term effects that this road will have. As it's been pointed out, 2016 is the sample year. One wonders what 2036 will bring us. However, when I've taken a holistic view of the pros and cons of this, it is with a heavy heart that I find myself supporting it, and I will be voting for this indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've listened to both sides with major interest, especially about the environmental impact that this road will have, and not say could have, but will have. I also realise that the environmental impact and the more traffic on the ridge will have, and traffic queuing on that junction, if that junction is still there. I do have reservations about the way that the traffic will get from London coming down the A21 and have to go around a complete loop. But obviously if the traffic is moving, that's far more better than it actually standing there, revving their engines and staying in the queue. I don't see any other way of doing this. I've had a look at the maps. I've been over that distance the last few days, and time and time again to look at other ways. I don't see any other way of doing this. And I understand about the employment ban. I also thank the officers for thinking that people at Hastings will be able to pull greener, cleaner cars in the future. I hope that does come true. But seriously, I don't honestly see any other way we can do this without causing a lot more environmental impact with cars on the ridge.
Thank you. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. I still have major concerns, I do have to say. I use that road regularly because my job takes me out of town on a regular basis. To be fair, I don't get held up for that long, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, compared to when I have to drive in certain places of London and Milton Keynes where my office is, where I can get held up for 10 minutes. I have major concerns still with how much impact with the roundabouts, whether that is actually going to solve the problem. And I do believe I mentioned this when this came to us previously. I do have concerns. Those concerns have not been allayed. We do have more cars on the road. We do need to get round to the town. I still remain very concerned that this way is not going to do it. And I don't think that the figures that we've been given have put my fears to rest. I'm not sure I can support this.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. Well, rarely do you see a planning application come forward where all of the statutory consultees are raising no objections at all, really. Having said that, the Environment and Natural Resource Manager, I see in 5.23, initially raised a number of concerns with the ecology information that was submitted. In particular, he talks about there's no explanation of how compensatory measures will be managed into the future and how those will be funded. I think that's still a concern. Normally through a section 106, but there's no indication of how that will happen. Or any biodiversity offsetting where there is a loss in the biodiversity habitat. So I think there are a number of concerns there still. Certainly air quality indicators we picked around quite a bit tonight, and I think some of us are getting to grasp of that now in terms of what that actually means. Obviously the impact on the ancient woodland, the impact on the wildlife, and I do know about the bridge, and I do know about how congested that road is, and what that actually means for people on Maplehurst Road, and you'll understand what the impact of closing that road off will be as well. It would certainly improve their quality of life, that's for sure. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I did oppose a planning application recently, actually, which was on the Ridge almost area because of the traffic implications on the Ridge. And we know that it's a very heavily subscribed road. It's a very congested road at peak times. And I think we do have concerns about how increased housing or development along the line will impact even further on the infrastructure. And I think we really do have a concern about that. Most of us that represent either Hollington, Wishentree, right the way through to the other end of the borough along the Ridge in Orr, etc. So I think all of those things are a big concern to us. I can see that people in Westall might not be too happy about going right around the sun to get to the moon as well. So I think all of those things thrown into the mix are of some concern. On balance, it really is an unbalanced one for me because I am concerned about naturally all the green issues that have been raised, the issues around wildlife, ecology and so on and so forth. But equally the need to address some of those concerns about traffic implications along the ridge by building the road, I'm afraid, because that's exactly what probably building this Queensway Gateway Road would do. It would alleviate some of those traffic concerns along the ridge. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So I'm still thinking, and I'm still hearing what my colleagues are saying. I'm hoping some other colleagues will come forward with other information or other comments that would give us some guidance really in terms of information, because for me this is very, very in the balance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bean.
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of information that hasn't come out yet, I noticed in the reports that the air quality in Bohemia Road is very similar to some of these rates that are going to be after this road has been.
I can't hear you.
I'm just saying that we are a nation of car drivers and air quality can be bad wherever you are. The Bohemia Road came up on the tables that were presented in the reports, and the air quality was bad there. We are, you know, this is something we are up against, and I don't disagree that we need to do something about car use generally. However, I think this road itself is a vital part of the jigsaw of the transport network, which is going to free up a lot of development that Hastings desperately needs, so I will be supporting it.
Thank you. Well, I'll just make one or two comments of my own. There's no question that granting permission for this road will involve a certain amount of harm to the environment. That's clear in the report. But as with all these things, we have to weigh up all the different factors. And it seems quite clear to me, and we'll see the evidence once the link road opens tomorrow, next week, whenever it is, what has been mentioned before, all this traffic coming from the link road wanted to go onto the A21, which will be stuck on the Ridge, Junction Road. We had, I think it was just last week, a couple of crashes on Junction Road caused because motorists were sick and tired of waiting and stupidly pulled out when they shouldn't have done. And that sort of thing can only get worse without this road. So I will be supporting this application tonight. Councillor Beaver, you reserve the right.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have listened very carefully to all the arguments tonight, those who oppose this and those who want it built. And I have hopefully understood the arguments on both sides. Now, I did second this, and I still do second the building of the Queensway Gateway for a number of reasons. Do I believe it will reduce congestion along the Ridge? Yes, I firmly believe it will. Will it actually ease traffic movement around that area? Yes, I believe it will. Well, are there environmental concerns that are there? Yes, I believe there are. However, what I believe is that the freer movement of traffic, certainly around the Junction Road junction, both at both ends of it, onto the Ridge and onto Hastings Road, the A21, will be mitigated a lot more by the Queensway Gateway. Now, like Councillor Rogers, my work takes me out of the town on a daily basis up to Tunbridge Wells, and I do travel back down the A21, both directions, daily.
Go on a train.
And I have actually, found that during peak hours, you do get a delay at the Junction Road junction to try and turn onto it from the A21. And during peak hours, you can actually get cars standing idle, not only back to the Westfield turn-off, but much, much further down, sometimes even back to the Battle turn-off, and even further on. All these cars standing idle, running their engines, causing pollution. Now the problem I have is that this also happens at the junction between Junction Road and the Ridge. Now all these cars are standing. Now we've heard that a car moving 30 miles an hour causes less emissions than a car moving at 0 miles an hour, or certainly at a lower speed. Now if we take that into consideration, it would surely be logical to say that the Queensway Gateway, allowing traffic to move more freely, would therefore cause less emissions from that traffic. Now I understand that we do get very high emissions levels, and indeed sometimes it does get very close to the limits that we are allowed. But what I believe is that this will alleviate the traffic, this will cause less pollution. And also, the one thing we are being asked to look at is the building of the road itself. Now yes, one of the reasons maybe in the future that industrial land may be developed, but that's in the future. Who knows when that will be built? It may be built in 5 years, it may be built in 10 years, it may be built in 20 years. But when those applications come before us, whoever is on this panel, in whatever guise, will certainly look at those with the same amount of and listen to both sides of the argument. Now we're being asked to do the link road, we are being asked to do the
I will remind members of the public not to interrupt, please. If you wish to remain in the meeting, listen.
We are being asked to approve the Queensway Gateway. We are not being asked to approve the Queensway Gateway and the subsequent building specifically of units, of industrial units. They will arrive at some point in time, possibly, if, who knows when. We cannot predict that future as to when that will be, and we cannot prejudice ourselves by saying we cannot build this in the next 20 years, because each development has to be brought forward and judged on the merits of that development. So the question I ask myself is that will this link road reduce congestion? Yes. Will it ease traffic? Yes. And do I support it? Yes.
Shame.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards, as the proposer of the motion, you now have the right to reply.
Very, very.
Excuse me, I don't mind if you kick me out, but no one has
Very,
covered
very
the
Would you please sit down? Would you please sit down?
Listen to us. Just let him speak.
No one has covered the CO2 absorbency capacity of the woodland. No one has on down going. I'm just getting traffic. No one can.
Don't touch him, assault.
You need to listen to the public. You're not listening to the public.
You're not a policeman. Don't touch him with assault.
Councillor Edwards.
Chairman, I don't want to sound like a dog with a bone, but we were asked earlier on to consider or whether alternatives had been considered. I will just look at paragraph 3.4 of the non-technical summary. It says here, EIA regulations require an ES to describe and include outline of the main alternatives studied by the applicant. This has been done, so I don't know whether Mr. Shaw forgot that, but it's all very clearly set out. As a final winding up, Chairman, I would say two matters we haven't got so far. Firstly, access to the hospital. Now, I live less than a mile from the hospital. As you can see, I'm rapidly aging. And I would hate to imagine a situation where I was taken ill and simply couldn't get to the hospital because of the sheer volume of traffic. And that's not something I would want to wish on my good colleague, Councillor Scott. So if he needs tweaking in one direction, it is the hospital, Councillor Scott. At the same time as that, we have many schools along the ridge. If we could persuade parents to somehow transport their schools other than in their own vehicles, that would reduce the traffic a lot. But at the moment, things are bad, so I would happily propose the motion, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Right, it has been proposed and seconded that permission be granted. All those in favour, please show.
Shame. 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 Think of the future. Shame on you! Unlawful.
Thank you.
Unlawful. Shame on you.
Declare the meeting closed.
What visionaries? What visionaries?
I declare the meeting closed at 7:38.
What about Paris? What's happening now? We shall not give up the fight. We have only started. We have only started. We have only started. We shall not give up the fight. We have only started. We have only started. We have only started. To never ever put to flight. We are bound to win. We are bound to win. We are bound to win. Never ever put to flight. We are bound to win. We are bound to win. We are bound to win. Exactly. Yeah.